So officially, very warm welcome. I'll just do the normal introduction from my side before I hand over to the specialists who have joined us today. So my name is Michal Szymanski. I'm the CEO of the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub. And you might be asking yourself, FinTech Hub, why are we discussing around digital transformation? I think it's important in light of where the world is going and the digitalization process that is occurring on a global scale. I think it's fair to say that fintech or financial technology cannot weather or grow by itself. You need a lot of collaboration from the various stakeholders, not only from a regulatory perspective, but also from a skills perspective, from an innovation and incubation perspective, from a funding perspective. So this is the first step from our side with working closely with Ministry of ICT, with the Mauritius Research and Innovation Council and the CRB, who are participating in today's panel, because some of the initiatives that they're working on the ground actually have a lot of impact, not only for fintech, but a lot of other digital projects that are or will be rolling out in the near future. So from our side, I'd like to introduce you to the panel, and we'll kick off from there. So maybe I'll give it over to the panelists to give 1 or 2 minutes introduction to yourselves and also to the various organizations you represent. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier today that we have a lot of participation from a global perspective. So if you can just give us a little bit of context about your organization for some of our more international viewers. And maybe Rajnish, I'll kick off and start off with you. Very warm welcome, and can you give us a little bit of overview from your side? Oh, just need to unmute yourself, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Michal, and good afternoon to all the participants. I am Rajnish Hawabhay from the Ministry of Technology, Communication, Innovation. So in fact, the ministry, Michal, I'll just give a few lines about what the ministry does. And so the ministry is responsible for the promotion of ICT in the country, and we look at policy issues. We also look at the digital government setup for Mauritius. And we are therefore organized with departments, and the CIB, Poornanund is here, is going to talk about it. So the CIB looks after projects and is going to talk more about it. And we also have a department, which is the CISD, which is looking after the operationalization of systems. So we are responsible for the whole public service delivery. And we're also looking at cybersecurity issues, because that also is very important. If you have an online life, cyber threats are very much something that you have to address. So that also is part of what we do here. And as a ministry, we also look at digital skills. How do we ensure that the country has the digital skills required to pursue the digitalization of the country?
Awesome. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping the gun. I'm very conscious. I think we had a chat before when the stream started that we run a very tight ship here. But I think for me, Rajnish, it's very important from the fact that the ministry is joining us today. It kind of shows the intent and your intention of being part of this journey, and in the collaboration with the various stakeholders and making people aware of what this space looks like. So very warm welcome, and thank you much, Rajnish, from your side. Poornanund, maybe moving on to you. Just you want 2 minutes, sir?
Yes, hello, I'm Poornanund Ramnial from Central Informatics Bureau. So thank you for having me in this webinar. So I will be talking mainly about digital government, some projects that we are implementing in public organizations. So what are the initiatives that we have that we are implementing, and then I will also discuss about some upcoming new projects that will towards our journey for a digital government. Thank you.
Perfect. Poornanund, thanks so much for the introduction. And last but not least, Nitin, good afternoon, sir, and a warm welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Michal. Warm good morning or good afternoon to attendees from other countries. My name is Nitin Gopaul. I'm Research Coordinator at the Mauritius Research and Innovation Council. Just very quickly what we are basically the advisor, apex body advising government of Mauritius on science, technology issues, as well as economic and social matters. We are also principally a funding agency for research and innovation. The act of the council itself has recently changed. Last year in September, we moved from being Mauritius Research Council to Mauritius Research and Innovation Council. So a lot of emphasis now on innovation and on commercialization. In fact, a lot of our schemes are now directed towards private sector entities. They are meant to come up as the main applicants, bringing together other consortiums of companies locally or internationally, and of course, partnering with research institutions, so that we want to bridge that dynamic gap between industry, academia, and government, and make sure that there's innovation happening in all sectors. FinTech being one of the recent ones that are coming across now. So I think the other discussions that we'll probably have during the course of this session will be able to touch on a little bit more in detail on how our funding schemes can allow participants from other countries to join in, tie in with local companies and make things move. And when we consider funding for projects, we are looking at the applications not only locally, but hopefully applications that can touch on the region and why not internationally. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you much, Nitin. And once again, from my side, thank you much, gentlemen, for your time this afternoon. And Nitin, maybe just to give you some insight, when you mentioned the word funding, I think our viewership rose by 150%. I think everybody likes the word funding. I'm just being a little bit naughty on my side. So, ladies and gentlemen, from our side, as you can tell, we've got 3 individuals here who are all about digital transformation. In the olden days, we'd probably call most of them techies around the table, including myself, hopefully one day. And the individuals who are involved in the digital transformation process or journey somewhere along the way. And maybe to kick us off this afternoon, because from our side locally here, we've heard words such as the Information Highway, MauriCloud, and we're seeing a lot of emphasis around the world around opportunities in not only in the cloud, but kind of the information sharing and the impact that the digitalization process will have on a global scale. So maybe to start us off this afternoon, Rajnish, maybe on your side, I know you've prepared some information that you'd like to share with the users from your side, but maybe just kick us off around those two initiatives that the Mauritian government has not only started but implemented, and obviously this is part of the strategy towards moving Mauritius throughout its digital transformation journey. So I hand it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Michal. I will be covering the InfoHighway, which is the data exchange platform that we have in government. And we'll share the screen. We'll have a presentation of the InfoHighway. Just maybe you should just allow me to share my screen. Michal?
Sorry, technical issues.
Yeah.
Share screen. All panelists. There we go, sir.
Right. Can you share? Right.
Perfect. Advanced options have been enabled, sir.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Ready full screen. So you can now see my screen. Right. It's fine. You can see the screen. You can see the InfoHighway. It's fine.
Yes, we can.
Right, thank you very much. So the InfoHighway is the data sharing platform that we have in government. And it is much about implementing the concept of publisher and subscriber. So the concept is very simple. So we go by the fact that there is a subscriber, there is a party who wants to get data, and the publisher is the one who has the data. So how does the subscriber makes a request for the data, makes a request, the request goes to the publisher, and the publisher then returns the data packaged as properly to the subscriber. So the concept of the InfoHighway is that it is a live data sharing. In fact, this platform allows us to share data in real time. We're able to share the data in real time. So that's the live data sharing. It also allows us to do multiple transfers. So we can transfer data from different parties. And it's a single entry point, so meaning that all ministries and departments, when they want to access data, they have only one point to connect to, and we ensure the connection at the back. We have a secure platform where we have implemented a number of security measures so that the data can be securely transferred. And then also, it is a 24/7 service, so it's available to all ministries and departments at any time. And also, it's a very, it's managed for an innovative governance. So we have a management team that meets every month to look at requests for data sharing, and we consider that, and we have different parties. The Attorney General's Office, the Data Protection Office also with us. We have the Ministry of Finance, we have EDB also, so that we have different parties who can examine requests from different ministries. And also we reinvent ourselves. InfoHighway, what is good is stays young. InfoHighway is such a platform that it's there for the past 4 years. And it's always looking at how it can be re-energized. What we've been doing, how can we do it again from a different way? How can we do it better? How can we reinvent the services? So basically the InfoHighway is... So just to say that it was, the music is a bit loud. It started in April 2014. Right, so it started in April 2014, and where we had only one connection and we had 3 services. Then in September, then in August 2016, we took over the management of the InfoHighway. And as you can see, it has just grown over time. And today, in fact, in March 2018, it received the WSIS Award, the World Summit Information Society Award. And today it has grown with its on the G-Cloud infrastructure, government cloud infrastructure, and it has a data dashboard, and also it has the InfoSync. In fact, the InfoHighway has grown from just a simple data exchange platform to a very intelligent platform that can share data and also synchronize data. Because, for example, every night, the Ministry of Social Security receives data about deaths which have occurred during the day. Deaths, why? Because then we are able to stop the payment of pensions, right? So that is why it synchronizes, and the Ministry of Social Security gets only data about pensioners, doesn't get data about other contributors. For example, people in an organization, in a company, must be paying CHG, for example, and that information is not relevant. For example, if somebody passes away, it's not important for them. So what is important, Social Security, is only those people who are pensioners. So InfoSync is such a module. And also I was awarded the MPQC award in October 2018. And the portal also came, a new portal, and also a public website in March 2019, and a publisher map in June 2019. So InfoHighway has been just evolving over time, but what is important in InfoHighway, the concept is very simple. It's a bit like, well, as always say, it's like the Data Express. It takes you, like Metro Express, takes you from one station to the other. And we don't know who is traveling, but we know a person is traveling. The InfoHighway is a simple platform that allows you, example, to move data from one ministry to the other. And we don't know what data content is moving, but we know that the data is moving. We know that the volume of data is moving, and we know what time it has moved, but we don't know the content because that is private to the ministries and departments. But we're able to do it very fast. Now, just to tell you if it's very fast, then we have reached 516 data sharing services. We have it 516. We started with only 3 data services. Today we are at 516 over the past 4 years. And we are able to connect 50 public services agencies until now. This is the request we have received. And we have about more than 2.9 million transactions that we have served on the platform over the 4 years. And we are making a savings of around 4.2 years of savings. How do we calculate that? We say if a transaction takes about 15 minutes, then we must have saved 5% of it. If 5% of it comes to 4.2 million, 4.2 years of savings. Obviously, just this is a very crude, very raw estimation, but just to give you an example of how big this data sharing through the InfoHighway is. And it's been on for the past 1,500 days. Now, for the Tourism Authority, more than 2,300, just an example, 2,300 transactions or licenses are being issued. The MRA for negative income tax, one day in day and night, they had made 600,000 transactions. The system survived that, so to tell you that it is a robust system. The FIU, they make transactions or queries for the Financial Intelligence Unit, and they take about 30 minutes to make their inquiries. And they're inquiring plenty of databases across government, citizen, businesses, companies, it's the NTA, National Transport Authority, it's plenty of organizations, they are inquiring data. If we look at another benefit for the Social Security, I mentioned that deaths data are going on, so they are not paying pensions. It's about 50 million rupees, more than 50 million rupees of savings that they are doing because they're not paying people that, and they don't need to recover the data. And we have not corrected this slide. It's 4.2 years of overall savings from that. So the InfoHighway is a superb platform that is allow us to move. Now, just to tell you that it's a publisher-subscriber model. So a publisher-subscriber have to fill in the form. They agree that they want to share their data. They sign it and they send us the form, and then we hold the meeting. The second step is to hold the meeting of the management team meeting here, where we have plenty of platform. We have the Ministry of Finance, the State Law Office, the Data Protection Office, National Computer Board, IT Security Unit, the CIB, and the publisher and subscriber meeting to discuss about the request. And once it's considered and approved, it goes into our priority list. And our InfoHighway team now is going to look at the technical things, IP addresses and opening ports and the building service. So we want to do a turnaround time of 2 weeks. Within the turnaround time of 2 weeks, the e-service must be on. And then the subscriber gets the e-service on the portal, but then they have to configure their machines, test the e-service, and then they can build their own web service because they have to build their own web service. We give them, but they have to integrate on their applications, and then they can confirm that web service is on. That's it for the InfoHighway. We'll now move to the. We just have to change. We have to exit.
Rajnish, I've got a few questions for you, sir. So let's pretend I'm an average human being.
Now, the MauriCloud is a platform. We've looked at InfoHighway as a platform for sharing data. MauriCloud comes as a platform for sharing documents.
Hello, Rajnish.
Michal, you wanted to say anything?
Sorry to interrupt. Just a couple of quick questions. I mean, So for me, what you're basically saying around the InfoHighway is that Mauritius has effectively the infrastructure that's currently available in order to make use of an almost instantaneous flow of information between various organizations. So that is real time right now in Mauritius that can happen.
Exactly, it's real time. It's real-time information that flows. We even have a dashboard, which is InfoWatch, which tells us we can see what's happening across, and it's being used. For example, if somebody applies for negative income tax, you're checking the details. We did all of us in Mauritius had to fill in our tax returns. When we fill in our tax returns, it does a check about the spouse, the details, even our own details, our name, our date of birth, and all this is done online through InfoHighway. So InfoHighway is the invisible infrastructure that is really making all this possible. And but then the benefits, for example, for tax return, just to tell you, is that the MRA, the Mauritius Revenue Authority, can refund taxes. If ever you paid you paid more taxes, they will need to refund you. They are able to refund it very fast, within 2 weeks or less than that. They can do it because they're validating data in real time.
That is super interesting. Thank you much, Rajnish. I just want to clarify that. So if there's already an existing real-time framework. Just another question, which I saw one of the users ask is, why has this been the best kept secret in Mauritius? I mean, if we've got free flow and exchange of information happening between various organizations on the ground, you know, why haven't we heard more about this amazing transformational tool that's available? Or is this the start of the journey? Are we ready?
Well, I think we've been, as a ministry, and the minister also has been talking about InfoHighway. You can see it in budget also, in budget speeches. You will see references to InfoHighway as a platform for sharing data. You will see it in making solutions happening. So it's there. Now, secondly, is that the InfoHighway has been used extensively for public to public sector data sharing. But the law has been amended. The Electronic Transactions Act has been amended last year to allow us to share data with the private sector. So in fact, the banks is one sector where we wish to make that happen. In fact, we discussed about all this and we planned with the CIB and other parties, we've discussed about how to do it. We are right now in the last stage of wrapping it up in terms of all the paperwork, because the technology is there and the solution is there. It's just making the solution available to other parties. So we must be now stepping into that that stage. It is just a question of days, I would say, before we can engage into real sharing of data with other parties. So InfoHighway is a platform that can be exploited for that.
Awesome, that's awesome. And if I can have a little cheeky comment before we move on to MauriCloud. So are you telling me that because of your system, our taxman is the most efficient government body that exists at the moment?
They have done a lot of work on their side. Let me say that they have done a lot of work on their side. But we are also part of that work, and we are also part of that too, definitely.
No, I always find it fascinating that the most digital transformative government bodies is normally the revenue service, that even in South Africa are the most efficient on the ground in terms of getting their money and making sure that money flows. So it's just interesting to note that we already have a system online that has been around for a while and is very close to getting a green light potentially with the financial services soon. So that's good to know. Now, thank you much for that, and we'll move on to MauriCloud.
Yes. So for MauriCloud, well, MauriCloud is the name of the infrastructure because that was what was announced in budget speech a couple of years back. We've rebranded MauriCloud into MauriCloud. So just to tell you that MauriCloud is Mo being for me, and cloud being cloud, so telling you that we will be a platform where you can share documents. The other one was sharing about data. Here it's about documents. So MauriCloud created a platform for issuance of documents. This is what has been announced. And as announced recently, it's also about making available free copies of birth certificates, marriage certificates, and all this will be free of charge. And MauriCloud, in fact, will be carrying these documents on there. It's a journey to paperless governance, definitely, and it rests on the G-Cloud infrastructure of Government Online Center, our data center of government, which is the G-Cloud. Benefits would be accessing digital documents anytime, anywhere, and it's going to be PDF format, and it's digitally signed and minimizes paper documents, and you can validate. What is important is also you can validate the authenticity of what we're giving you, because it carries the digital signature. So our first use case is birth certificate. So we're going to also use the NAF, the National Authentication Framework, which is also another thing that it's about the MOPAS, and I believe Poornanund, you're also going to touch on that. And it's going to. So in fact, what we're doing is MauriCloud comes at a time where we're trying to put up all our different developments that we have put in place. So you can see that today we got a puzzle. The InfoHighway is the real-time data exchange. The NAF is the MOPAS, which is the authentication platform, which can do one-factor authentication and two-factor authentication. In fact, MOPAS is going to be live as from end of this week.
Yes.
MOPAS is going to be live for all citizens.
Oh, wow.
As from 11th of December. And if you are going to log in on the portal, for example, you would be using MOPAS, and even applying for jobs and all these things would be using MOPAS. So everywhere MOPAS is coming up. MauriCloud also is here. So MauriCloud will be launched very soon, just after that. So it gives you document, and we can give access to documents, public sector documents like birth certificates, marriage certificates, driving license, etc. would be there. And e-services and M-services would be exploiting that platform. MOPAS, a few words on MOPAS. MOPAS will be a platform that can use OAuth 2.0, OpenID, WSFeed, and Samuel authentication. So it is very open platform. It can be integrated and on everyone. So your solution can use OAuth. Please do use it. Our API is there to link up. So MOPAS is open for all this. It's a national centralized digital identity provider. So this is what MOPAS is. It integrates with the systems. It's a single window authentication, and it provides you trust and confidence. And we are already implementing and integrating with different solutions. So just to tell you, how do you use MOPAS? You register on the MOPAS portal. You get a username and password. You get a single sign-on for all services of government. And there are services that use 1FA. But if you want to use, for example, MauriCloud, it's a 2FA application, because we need to be very much safe and secure that we know that who is doing that. So that's a two-factor, and you can see for the KYC we will be using that through the Mauritius Post. In fact, it's like the digital, what do you call that? Digital banking. You are doing. You want to use your bank account online. You need to have an account, but you need to at least go to the bank. They confirm your identity, and then you can, once it's done, then you can do all your transactions online. It's the same thing. Once you go to Mauritius Post and any post office, you confirm your identity, KYC is done, then you can have access to 2FA transactions on that, and MauriCloud, any document, you will be able to exploit that. That's about MauriCloud. Yes, that's about it.
Perfect. Rajnish, there's a few questions. I mean, as you'll know, part of the association and what the ecosystem is looking towards is eKYC. You know, the need for potentially integrating that hopefully in the near future. But there's a lot of questions here which we have around you. But I thought let me move quickly on to, well, not quickly. Let me move on to Poornanund, which has obviously joined us from the CRB. Maybe touching base and expanding on some of the initiatives that Rajnish mentioned, or give us a little bit of background maybe on what some of the initiatives are from your side, what is happening in the digital transformation journey.
Okay, so we at the CIB, Central Informatics Bureau, which is a department of the ministry. So we help and assist ministries and department to implement ICT projects. Okay, so we have a team of program managers who provide consultancy services to those public organizations in terms of how to improve their services. We provide project management services to ensure that the projects are implemented, and we prepare specification and involve in the evaluation regarding the choice of ICT solutions. So maybe as a dashboard, I can tell you that we have some more than 100 big IT systems running on those different departments, ministries and departments, taking from police, Ministry of Social Security, for business registration, for Registrar General Department, for registration of deeds. So we have a variety of, in different areas, different sectors, okay? We have different systems. And and we are currently implementing about 100 projects that are ongoing, new and ongoing projects. We have also deployed more than 100 e-services. We have mobile apps. We have, as Rajnish said, about the data sharing services. We also have open data sets, okay, that we have launched. So those are like a dashboard that we are implementing. And our best benchmark, what we are doing is UN e-government survey, how we are progressing. So on 2018 survey, we were ranked 66, and we have moved a little this survey for 2020. We have 63, okay? So we're still in the region for Africa, we are keeping our first position on the UN e-gov survey. So this is a benchmark of how we are progressing, what we are doing, okay? And like Raji said earlier, we have some digital enablers, okay, that help us to deploy those projects. Like we have about more than 200 sites, I mean, ministries department, which are connected in a network to our government data center, okay? And we have like MAFH, we have MauriCloud, we have InfoHighway. Those are enablers that help us to deploy IT projects, okay? Maybe for some projects that we are that are operational, that are national level, we have the ID card project, okay? We have the COTS project, crime occurrence tracking system for the police department. For the business registration, we have a system for online. If you want to set up your business online, you can do it, okay? You can renew your business payment and so on online. Okay, so we have many systems. Also for the business sector, we have a system for land valuation. Okay, we have also for social security and for social registration. Okay, also on that side. Maybe I can share with you some of the upcoming projects that we are implementing. Okay.
That'll be amazing. But before we do, I have a cheeky little question from my side, sir. So let's pretend I have no knowledge about what CRB is. If I had to describe it to one of my friends sitting in Finland or Argentina, could I describe them as the guys who action various IT initiatives on the ground, and therefore, if things don't work, they're the ones that get into trouble?
Maybe yes, we are the technical arm of those Mauritius department, because they don't have those technical skills or people helping them. So we from our ministry, we help them. We set the ecosystem, the enablers, and so on, so that we move in a common direction. And this is important so as to avoid duplication or different organizations doing the same thing and so on. So we are more consolidated on the policy and direction we are moving forward. So how we implement projects is that we prepare strategies, like we prepared the digital government transformation strategy 2018 to 2022. So, and we have lots of recommendations, and this is how we implement projects, okay? And in a way that is
so you're also part of, responsible for setting the goals and the targets, and then obviously helping with the execution on the ground for various government organizations that might not have the technological skills themselves in order to implement these strategies. Is that correct?
Yeah, we set some strategies, some goals, and work together with client ministries to achieve our digital government journey. Okay. And
and then maybe giving, sorry, I know I'm jumping in here. I think there's a slight delay from my side. So the answer to my previous question is yes. Then I can tell them that you guys are the execution that gets a little bit of the stick if things don't happen, right? But maybe maybe looking into the future, you know, some of the projects that are in your pipeline at the moment, you know, what's on your radar going forward? Just maybe making sure the viewers are aware of some of the digital transformation things on your plate at the moment.
Yes, we see some projects, like we have, as mentioned by Rajnish, we have the NAF, we have also have the CA, Certification Authority. We will soon embark on a new project for e-social security. Okay, we are our e-health system, long-awaiting project that hopefully will kickstart. We have a project for the police, the automated fingerprint information system, and we have for Laving's project, we are revamping that project to introduce blockchain technologies. So following consultancy as a consultant, and we have been advised we can to introduce blockchain technologies, and we are also adding new e-services, new mobile apps. So the idea is to help citizens, businesses, so as the way they interact with government is to have the transactions done easier, with to remove those barriers and to provide as far as possible online systems, and they can interact easily with the government in terms of both efficiency for the end users and also for the government inside, so as to try to minimize those paperwork and to have, like in our strategy, we're mentioning to be a government digital by default. Okay, so as far as possible to have this concept digital by default.
Okay, and Poornanund, just maybe one more question from you before we move on to the MRIC from that aspect. You mentioned earlier a rating system. So you mentioned there was 66 and 63. Is there some form of rating that's used in Africa where we score against and are not compared to other continents? Is it an internal rating? It's just a little bit around that, because I've never heard of it before.
No, this is a UN rating for e-government, how countries are doing. All the countries, more than 150 countries. So how the ways they are doing, they're providing e-services, helping businesses, helping citizens, and so on, how government is doing about their portal, whether you're looking for a service, whether you can pay your utility bills online, and so on. So they have a comprehensive survey, questionnaires that we have to fill in, and they cross-check, and then they do the rating, and each 2 years that they perform those survey, and this is our benchmark, how we are doing, okay? And this is very important because then you can compare with other countries, and you can also have a sharing of projects, what the other country has done that you can also try to customize and do in your country so as to help businesses and people to transact with government. So it is called the UN e-government survey. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you much for that, sir. So, as I mentioned again, Nitin, not last and not least, sir, I'm hoping you're still with us today. Nitin is joining us from MRIC. There we go. Welcome back, sir.
Yeah.
So from your side, I mean, there's a couple of things. Firstly, maybe kick us off. What is the purpose around innovation, including the word innovation? From the MRIC perspective, that gave you a much broader aspect when it came to technology. So maybe sharing with us, firstly, what prompted the MRC to become the MRC? If you can share that, that'll be amazing.
Yeah, sure.
And then secondly, maybe just in terms of from a government body and a research council that exists, some of the support things that exist on the ground for the various kind of initiatives, digital transformation initiatives.
Okay. Well, I think one of the key drivers that prompted the transformation from Research Council to Research and Innovation Council is because previously the MRC Research Council used to fund principally projects emanating from academia. Now the only it was good at a certain time for developing capacity, developing expertise, encouraging researchers at university to move into more applied type of research rather than purely academic type of work. However, there was always that gap in transitioning the outcome of research findings into something practical and applicable in society. And I think over time, this is what became more and more important, and this is what drove the aspect of innovation and commercialization to become more at the forefront. It became more important, especially from the perspective of the Ministry of Finance, because the council operates using public funds. So there was more directive from the Ministry of Finance, and I guess this goes back to discussions that the country as a whole has been having, maybe with funding agencies like the World Bank, IMF, and others on a more on a higher level. They want to see the country moving forward, making use of research development, but turning it into something that's useful for society and businesses. So this really prompted the change from just supporting academic type of work into supporting innovation that has a commercial finality. So it's looking at encouraging startups, SMEs, larger companies to move into products and services that are beneficial to them, beneficial to society, but also beneficial to them moving into the region. The country is small, Mauritius is small, the market is small. So a lot of the development that needs to be done has to have a more outward vision, if I may put it this way. And this is really at the base of what caused that transformation. Now, coming to the second point, the way that we operate is we've devised a number of funding schemes at the council, and this is something that has evolved over a number of years, taking into account the changing landscape in the country, and also the fact that there's more connectivity of the country with digitization, and in the sense that services can be offered from startups and small companies based locally in Mauritius without really taking into consideration physical barriers. Now, the schemes that we've devised at the council are meant, like I mentioned before, are meant principally to encourage enterprises to come forward with innovative ideas and help catalyze that transformation. Something that would take maybe 3 years, 4 years to develop, we come in and put in the funding, allow them to transition that phase much faster so that they can become competitive earlier. We started off, one of the lowest schemes I can mention very briefly is what we call a proof of concept scheme. And that is essentially asking SMEs, startups, big companies to take something that they have been working on. If they have some idea about it, they've done some minimal testing, they have an idea that it probably fits certain market. This type of funding, which is over a 12-month period, 1 million Mauritian rupees, would allow them to validate, to test it, and design it, tailor it in such a way that they know when they reach at the end of those 12 months, they've got sufficient information, sufficient data that makes it ready for them either to move to a second stage of development or to take it directly, maybe license that proof of concept out to a company that has the ability to do that. And this is where we encourage a lot of small enterprises to tie up with research institutions who have the knowledge. Very often enterprises come up with very good ideas, but they don't have the technical know-how, they don't have the expertise. So by tying in with an academic institution, they are able to refine certain things, validate certain testing up to a certain level that makes it acceptable. What we also encourage, I mentioned that before, we encourage a sort of international type of partnership. So we have at least 2 schemes that look into this. One is which we call the collaborative research scheme, which can offer from government funding up to 5 million rupees, Mauritian rupees, for a project that would extend up to a maximum of 24 months. So what that allows is the core of that type of application is, again, a company coming forward, but there's an obligation for them to tie in with a local research institution. But around that core, they can graft in other companies, whether they are local, or they can graft in other research institutions, local or international. And it's through this sort of partnership that we ensure that there is much bigger development going on. Funding is made available also for new staff to be drawn into a company, into a research institution to help these projects move forward. And if we move one step further, we've got something which we call the Research and Innovation Bridge funding. This one specifically encourages a local company to tie in with an overseas company. So the core is that international partnership. And again, it's a company locally going towards a company or a research institution overseas. And again, around that, we allow them to graft other enterprises. So it could be even consortium type of agreements that are built around that. Again, it's 24-month period, but then the level of funding from the government goes up to 10 million. These 2 modes of funding I've just mentioned about the 5 million and 10 million, these are on the basis of matching grants. So the projects themselves can be twice the value or even more. And so there's a component coming from the government, but we expect the entities, the company and its associates to bring in a sharing in the cost. And to make it easier, what we do is we ask them to split it in forms of in cash and in-kind contribution. And this contribution is also spread out over the period of the project. So it makes it easier, if you want, for companies to inject certain cash amounts at the beginning and spread it over the range of the time of the project. Another thing that we encourage also is what we call a pool of innovation. This is a bit more oriented towards academic institutions who want to develop a center of excellence, for example. If you take FinTech as an example, it could be an academic institution who has certain expertise, but they want to develop it into a center of excellence over a certain time. So the funding there goes over a period of 3 years, 9 million Mauritian rupees spread over a 3-year period. But again, this is very much in the line of encouraging that academic institution to tie in with private sector, with companies. It could be the other way around also, that it's a company that decides to set up a center of excellence and they graft in other companies or private or a research institution to help them develop. And through this particular approach, there's encouragement given to, if it's a research institution, they can have master's, PhD students coming in over the period of time so that they build the expertise, and that expertise is very much then tailored, hopefully, to a real life situation that enterprises are likely to take up.
Sorry, from my side,
yeah.
Just a couple of questions from my side.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something very key for me here is the fact that even though there's a government will and initiative to sponsor these kind of projects, there's still a will to be very outward looking, i.e., for example, when we're talking about Africa. So there's a lot of emphasis that could happen or collaborations that could exist with other countries on the continent or potentially from abroad on the number of these initiatives, which could still be funded in Mauritius and then obviously scaled and taken into other jurisdictions around the continent. Is that a possibility? So let me reframe the question. So if I'm a South African startup, for example, and I come to Mauritius, I link up with academia and local industry players. We match funding. So let's say I bring 9 million, you give me 9 million in a matching grant. I'm being very, very theoretical here. And then we could develop a POC or an MVP, even up to that locally. And we could take that solution and potentially scale it to the continent. Would that be something that could be potential that you want to see involved in?
Yeah, that's certainly one approach. But again, and I'll take the line like insurance companies. You read this. You need to read the fine print also at the bottom of the page. There are some conditions attached because we are principally using government funding. There's also an encouragement from the government, from our parent ministry, to encourage first of all local companies, but it doesn't prevent associations with other companies. And like you've mentioned, we have in certain cases funded companies that are initially based in an African country, but they've come here in Mauritius. They've set up a branch, they've set up a unit. So they have a registration, a BRN number in Mauritius. And what that implies is that there is a level of activity happening on the Mauritian territory. So this would assure us that any funding that goes into development, there is at least a minimum level of benefit that can come back to the country. And then look at the regional counterpart and see where you can grow. Now, what's interesting also, this type of engagement, we've been looking at internationalizing our reach. In fact, in the new act, which I mentioned in September, there's specific provision now to look more outward. And recently, the council set up a joint call with the Technology Innovation Agency of South Africa. And what that would allow, the call has closed a couple of weeks ago. We are still in the process of analyzing the projects that have been received. What that allows is companies in South Africa, for instance, to partner with the company in Mauritius. So the joint funding would allow a company in Africa itself, along the lines of a project that has commonalities with the company in Mauritius, to develop certain lines of action in the Africa.
Well, I think hopefully we can get Nitin back. This is getting juicy and we're getting to the good stuff here. Money flowing. Hopefully we can get Nitin back on. Let's give him 5 more seconds. Maybe the Ministry of ICT had to close the conversation down because there was money involved. There we go. No, being naughty again. Welcome back.
Sorry, I lost you for a second. I think your screen froze. Can you just say that again? I missed the first part of your comment.
No, 100%. You were just elaborating to us on your relationship with TIA, the Technology Innovation Agency of SA. But I think for me, what's important to note here is that there's a genuine willingness for the Mauritian government, and obviously utilizing taxpayers' monies, which there's always there's T's and C's involved, but there's a genuine willingness to work with other jurisdictions on the continent and maybe your peers in other countries in Africa, whether they're in South Africa or Egypt potentially, but there's a genuine willingness to work together and potentially get some of those projects here locally. So yes, there could be some local value add, but also from a digital process of building a POC and an MVP, and then this could be a good environment to test it out here and then scale it into the other jurisdictions at a later date.
Yeah,
so for me,
I agree absolutely with you. There's another aspect also that's very closely tied to this is the issue of technology transfer and intellectual property. We at the level of the council, we encourage very much companies to take this into account, especially those who are in the ICT sector, take cognizance of issues of intellectual property so that they can develop things here in partnership, but then leverage that knowledge for benefit, of course, in other countries in the region. And I think if you talk of fintech, you talk of digital type of services, we shouldn't be limiting ourselves to Africa. I think there are so many examples of digital solutions that go worldwide. If they are created properly and they do fit a certain niche market, there's a demand for it, or in some cases they create the demand. So I think there's no real limitation in the way digital services can be developed. And we see a lot of small companies, startups who start coming to us with very, very interesting ideas. And they need, of course, support, they need partnerships, but the ideas are good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you much, Nitin. I think it shows intent here, from the various government bodies that they are willing to not only engage and collaborate, but also think about the continent and the globe from that perspective. Maybe just you take a couple of questions, real-time questions that came through in the interim. So maybe this one for you is Rajnish. The first question here was, can the private sector subscribe to the InfoHighway services? If yes, how?
Good question, Michal. In fact, we're going to go in a stepwise manner. So we're going to open up to banks, and in fact, the commercial banks would be going through the Bank of Mauritius. In fact, the Bank of Mauritius would be our customer, a direct customer. I mean, the request will come straight from the Bank of Mauritius, but the commercial banks will go through the Bank of Mauritius to us. So it will be a stepwise manner in which we will proceed, and well, we will open up as we progressively move, but banks first, financial services through the FSC, and Bank of Mauritius would be the second, and so would move in a stepwise manner.
Okay, so if I was a fintech today, let's say I'm a local fintech here, or I've just moved into Mauritius, I would still need to just wait for the government entities to be a part of the InfoHighway before then I could become a participant of that and register for the services.
No, not correct. In fact, what is going to happen is that once we open up to banks, it will be, as we say, we just have to go to cabinet and say that we are opening up to Bank of Mauritius, and this would be a door for all commercial banks. So then we would invite commercial banks, so Bank of Mauritius would do the invitation. This one is not very clear whether it's us or Bank of Mauritius, but it will be opening up to commercial banks. Same, we would be saying that we'll be opening up to Financial Services Commission, and Financial Services Commission would be then inviting all the fintechs to join in. So we would be going to the private sector through the regulators, because then the regulators have a duty of checking the soundness of the organizations at the back. The ministry doesn't take that on it, so it's the regulators who then link up to us.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
but we start with the Bank of Mauritius first.
That makes sense, especially from a regulatory perspective. You know, it's important to make sure that there's a process involved, especially when it comes to money. You've got a question here, sir, that says, does the CIB have a special team that looks into digital transformation journey from a portfolio overview? So I think what that's asking is, do you have dedicated teams, special teams at the CIB that look at the different digital transformation journeys of the different government departments that you're trying to serve?
Yes, we do have a team of program managers, and they are assigned to different ministries and departments. Like we have a team assigned to for Ministry of Health, and so they are looking all the different projects for the health sector. Same for police. There also we have different projects, different digital initiatives. So that team is following up for with police. So we have a good team of program managers, but of course we want to increase our resources because nowadays we are having lots of projects and lots of digital initiatives that are in Japan.
Okay, awesome. I know there's another 6 questions there, and I think we've got about 17 other questions on the back end. So I'll try to sum them up and split amongst everybody here, in terms of just make sure that we cover from all angles. You know, so maybe we'll start with the ministry question because there seems to be quite a bit of focus around that. So Rajnish, maybe from one theme we kept, or questions that we got received, was around the skills gap. You know, about building talent locally. So one of the questions is, do we have plans to close the digital skills gap in Mauritius? If so, what are our plans, and how are we going to achieve that in the future?
Okay, so digital skills gap is high on the agenda. How to close it is high on the agenda of the ministry. And the ministry is collaborating with the universities and the polytechnics to address courses. In fact, you will see that we have taken a number of measures, like, for example, University of Mauritius, which has doubled its intake so that it could then give more seats for ICT courses. That's one measure. And then we have the polytechnics and universities now offering courses in AI and also in blockchain technologies. Plus, we're also looking at running scholarships. In fact, we have scholarships that the government offers for emerging technologies. So these are the measures that we're already taking. But we have frequent consultations with the universities to see, and the technology associations, to see what is the skills gap and how do we come together to approach that. Plus, we also working with HRDC because they are the sector organization looking at skills mismatch in different sectors, and they are feeding us with data about what are the trends and where we need to focus our attention. So, in fact,
so
we are.
If I was sitting in Japan, what is the HRDC? If you can just elaborate.
It's the Human Resource Development Council, Human Resource Development Council, and they look after all HR needs in the country. Okay,
awesome, perfect, thank you. Nitin, maybe a question to you. So, you know, being an innovation and a culture of startups that you're surrounded with, one of the questions is, does our culture, Mauritius, foster digital innovation? It's quite an open and broad question, and maybe, you know, over the number of years that you've been part of the MRIC, have you seen a shift in the culture on the ground that's happening around the digital space? And I'm not going as far as you say that parents are saying my child should be a coder, but maybe you've seen things progress on the ground. Do we have a culture in Mauritius around that?
Yeah, I mean, just to take up on that last line that you said. In fact, the council did do some activities to encourage young children to get into the coding area. We've done at least one set of sort of training programs with the help of overseas associates, coding for robotics. Now recently there was also some more programming training for handling of satellite data handling, which comes in through small kits that the council itself has designed. So that's one aspect, trying to get people more into this area. But generally, in terms of the applications, yes, we do see a shift in culture towards more digital type of approach. We do have a lot of smaller companies, which we haven't come across them before, but when we advertise our call for proposals, we do get call for interest, and we have had meetings with very I'd say young groups of people, youngsters who've just finished university, who've been working maybe in one or two sectors for a couple of years, and then decided to set up their own enterprise. So they've been around probably in this digital space with fairly good experience from overseas, who decided to come and set up their own companies. And they, like I mentioned before, they are not looking only at the local market. They are proposing solutions that reach out to the region and to other countries. So there's definitely that shift. What I would say also, and it's based on some existing work that the council supported earlier, types of studies that were undertaken by university researchers, looking, for example, into digitization of enterprises, the appetite for them to take up technology and digital services. And there were some sort of drawbacks that were highlighted, but this I'm referring to something that's probably about 5-6 years ago. The trend is obviously moving towards more digitization, but there seemed to be a little bit of gap in between the ability of small enterprises, especially, to take up digital solutions. Maybe it was the fact that quite a few of them were being run by a certain age group of people who felt that they were not that comfortable with transitioning into digital type of solutions. But this is changing. This is changing now, and we see a lot of involvement of enterprises, companies moving into digital type of culture. So I think now, with the advent of there's much more pervasive use of smartphone all around the country, and I think this by itself is a big shift in culture. Most people now tend to think first, at least a younger generation, think first digital and then how it can be used in the local context.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. You know, part of the digital transformation journey, we need all the parties to work together when we go through this journey. You know, this isn't a young person's game. Right? I think a lot of people tend to forget that, you know, I don't want to be ageist, but the older generations, you know, we had innovations during our time, which we adopted very quickly. You know, even if I could use myself as an example, I used a Nokia 3310. When it first came out, it was cool. Now my son looks at me like I am a dinosaur, and it's not that many years later. You know, so I think where I'm going with this is that it's important to make sure that everybody's part of this digital transformation journey. It's not just a young person's game. You know, making the generation who's got the experience, who are probably the decision makers in various private sector organizations or decision makers in communities, government, making them feel ownership and being a part of this journey together. So I think that's starting to, from our side looking in, I think it's also starting to happen in Mauritius, specifically over the last couple of years. One most very specific question, maybe to you, Rajnish, because you've been called out by name here. You know, from a ministry which has obviously got a mandate to work in the technology space, how do you see the technology evolving over the next 10 years in Mauritius? That can be quite a loaded question because you could turn around and say we could be a Blade Runner kind of scenario, self-flying cars here, and be quite controversial. But over the next 10 years, how do you see this country evolve with the technology that's available?
Great question, I think.
It's super loaded.
Good. I see technology in the next 10 years being much more, really exploiting the emerging technologies at the best. I see people using technologies more in terms of doing more and more on their smartphones and really not going to for government. It would be a super transformation because we should, and this is my dream, and I believe it's something that is realizable. By 2030, we should be not having government county offices. Everybody doing everything online, not having to call at any office, and really doing everything online, not having paper, not having everything on the cloud. It's everything that you want to do on the cloud. Your life is in the cloud, your office in the cloud. Even really exploiting that work from home, real big time. I believe that there is a huge transformation that is happening, and we would be really living in a new world where you don't need to do all this. When I say that, then it comes a time where we would be using technology in a situation where, sorry?
COVID is accelerating.
Yeah, no, COVID is definitely accelerating, but our mindset will change, and classrooms without walls becomes a reality. The online learning that we were saying really happening, and that you don't need to commute to work, you don't need to commute to class to have your classes, you don't need to commute to work to do your work, so everything is done where you are. Right? It could be at home, it could be in vacation, it could be everywhere, but technology making you possible, right? So that's why the smartphones become so powerful. And right now we are working, I do plenty of things without my computer. So we would be exploiting more and more that small thing in the hands, but with a huge technology.
Okay. So basically what you're... Sorry, I'm jumping in here. So, but basically what you're saying is that the average Mauritian and everybody who's part of this country's lives will be better because we will stop wasting our life filling out forms and using older generation of technology over the next 10-year period. In other words, better lives on the ground.
Definitely better lives on the ground, and really then exploiting all systems that you can have, really much doing the one-study principle coming in. When you fill in a form, you've submitted one form, one data to government, that data travels across government and you don't need to fill it again. That data helps you to derive services. And the private sector also is the same thing. You have different companies, but everybody now starting to network their systems so that information and systems can talk and allow you to get your services, better services. So in fact, the network exploitation of coming together, systems talking to each other so that you can get your services online. And maybe for youngsters and for companies, this open API world, this API ecosystem happening, right? So that you can really not need to use others' systems, your own system. You want to do certain transactions, that transaction is possible across systems and it's transferred to people. So Open API really being exploited. We also have an Open API program. We want to open up, for example, companies' data, where you can not need to go to our systems to be able to to the financial returns, the shareholding, the directors, all this information. We give you open APIs, you integrate in your systems, you don't even to talk to us. You can do things without even knowing that you're even talking to us. So I saw a question about open banking. Whatever you have open API platform to be able to do plenty of transactions from your own systems. This is the future.
So in 2030, we are, if I can put a bold statement out there, the most interconnected country in Africa when it comes from data sharing, information flow, digitization process. Can I make a little bit of sneaky big call there?
If you say that for Mauritius, definitely we'll be there, but we'll not be alone. In fact, it's not, what is interesting is the world is moving together. So I can see countries like Kenya, like Ghana, like South Africa, like Rwanda, doing all the same things, Uganda and all. So what is good is it's going to be everybody together moving in the same direction and really exploiting technology. So it's, in fact, Nigeria. Why do we forget Nigeria? So all of us would be moving forward, really opening up and exploiting technology at the best, and getting our futures, a tech future, definitely a tech future.
Awesome. Thank you much for that, Rajnish. And I know we've got a lot of questions still on the go, but I thought, you know, in the interest of time, maybe a last comment from all our panelists. You know, I know there's questions around what are the barriers of preventing for you from getting the, you know, achieving our targets and stuff like that. But maybe just something, a story that you'd like to share from your or experience or learnings through your digital transformation, and something maybe that you've experienced or would like to share so people could learn from that experience as the last 1 minute of closing from the panel. I know it's a little bit, I'm throwing this out left field here, but you know, we're all human beings, and technology for me personally is there to make our lives better. You know, we all have stories and experiences that we share. So maybe, you know, some of the learnings from your specific areas that you'd like to share with our participants, you know, in a 1 or 2 minute format. If you'd like to do that, I'll open the floor now. Maybe Rajnish, start with you.
I'm trying my head at that.
We don't give you
right.
time here.
Right.
Go for it, sir.
Okay, Michal, I think one of the things that I've learned from digital transformation journeys that we have had is that we need to adopt an agile way of delivering services. And by being agile, by being iterative, by continuously looking at what the customer wants and adjusting with the customer and having a most valuable product out and taking the cues from the customers, we can build a solution that is robust, that really responds to the needs, right? So digital transformation is going to be successful if we keep all our ears open, all our eyes open, and continuously listen and see what the customers want. And for that, we need to be agile, we need to be responding. So if we do that, we definitely respond. And for me, one of the best things that has really taken that road is the InfoHighway. InfoHighway has always been on the lookout what people want, and that is why we have plenty of different products for different markets. I talk the markets, you hear me talking about products because I don't see InfoHighway. I see it as a product and really listening to people and answering to their needs. That's
funny enough coincides. I saw Vimal from locally here. He was on one of our attendees, and funny enough, you know, even from a financial services background, he mentioned that, you know, the future this morning, the future is going to be customer centric. You know, so it's great to see that the individuals such as yourself, from a ministry perspective, you know, have the same goals aligned. So it's great to see that there's alignment between government and the private sector. Poornanund, maybe from your side.
On our side, when we initiate projects or when we do the plans, of course, one of the major hurdles is funding part. Okay, So the funding for the project to be priority. So this is challenging. And sometimes we from our ministry side, we are pushing for digital transformation to have things happen in the IT world. But for the client ministry, sometimes priority somewhere else. So we don't get those commitments sometimes. And we also have issues regarding resources, skilled people implementing projects. Normally, we go for open tenders for our projects, and sometimes you end up same few potential bidders bidding for process. So we from government side, we want to have many players, many competitors coming with different technologies, bidding for a project. So we see that we are not having that open competition, as many potential suppliers are not competing for those big tenders. Yeah. So we would like to have different players coming with different solutions, innovative solutions to be implemented for the public sector.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Poornanund. And I think you nailed, you mentioned earlier in kind of your closing that, being a priority, I think is, in government, you've got a certain mandate and you've got to achieve on your mandate. And I think it's important not to lose fact that the digital transformation journey will help you throughout that, even though sometimes the focus might not be on that at this point in time, and resourcing that element enough to make sure that it makes our jobs easier at a later date. Specifically in a global climate where budget cuts are happening, as my head of marketing will tell everybody, the first thing that goes is marketing budget. Second one that goes is the ICT budget, right? Or money spent on digital transformation. Whereas it's in today's day and age where digital adoption is on the rise, that leads to financial risk at a later date, potential risk, or financial cybersecurity challenges. We can't sacrifice. It can't be a back burner. Maybe in terms of from your side, Nitin, to close off your learnings or sharings from your side.
Yeah, I think one thing that at the level of the MRIC we can say that we definitely learned was recently during the months of March, April, when the country went into a lockdown because of the COVID, we put out a call to ask people to come up with project ideas that would assist the government in tackling the COVID. And the amazing thing was that during total confinement over a 2-week period, we received an unprecedented number of proposals, 250 proposals received in 2 weeks. And this has beaten all the records of the council. And that took quite a few people by surprise, because there was an initial reaction that everything's locked down, no one's going to be able to work. But that just portrayed the strength, I think, or underscored maybe the efficiency of the digital services that are available in Mauritius, and how people were able to get together, come up with proposals, come up with ideas, in spite of not being, physically being able to meet, and lots of services who had gone into lockdown. That was an experience, and I think what this demonstrated to us is a willingness for various sectors of the population to come together and work using the background of digital services, digital platforms to get things together. I think at the same time also, when moving forwards, we've heard about this during the discussion today. Digitization brings together maybe a certain elements of social changes. We at the level of council are very much attuned to the social perspective of any transformation and innovation that comes along. In fact, we run a scheme which is called the Social Innovation Grant Scheme. We try to ensure that there's always a social perspective taken into account. You talk of digitization, automatization, robotization. of course, it's leading towards increased efficiency, increased productivity, but at the same time, there's a flip side of it, which has been recognized in other countries also, is that you need to also consider possibly a repurposing, reskilling, retuning of the human resources so that they can offer complementary services. And as a whole, then the digital transformation remains something successful in the longer terms, and it is sustainable. So I think overall, the picture is for a country like Mauritius, because we are geographically small and the level of education is fairly high in the country. I think this sort of transformation is probably more easily manageable than has been experienced in some countries. I would look in this direction.
Awesome. Gentlemen, thank you much for your time. I know we've got 2 questions here, which I'd like to answer at one stage and get back to the participants. And the first one is always, can we reshare the slides? I think we'll have to clear that up internally via all the ministries, and hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, we can share it with all the participants. Obviously, that'll be based on the feedback we receive from everyone. There's other questions which are quite interesting. Is could this process or the InfoHighway be used to facilitate applications for the RSL? It's a really good question, and I don't know if we have the answers at this point in time right now, but I don't see why not. But I think we'll take it offline with Rajnish and team. And for us, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the end of the journey. In the financial technology space, basically you're seeing a digitalization. FinTech is a digitalization of our current financial services. And that has impact across the borders, across everybody's life. And digitalization and evolution of us as a species is not necessarily always an easy task. When we moved over to money, physical hard cash as the first time we used that, it was not an easy transition. When we are moving onto e-platforms, what does our data look like? Who owns the data? There's a lot of questions that are being asked around the world, from a decentralized perspective. Should we move to decentralization, et cetera, et cetera. So this is an amazing time we live in. And I think it's important to note that the digitalization process is happening naturally. This isn't something that we can shy away from. This isn't something to be afraid of. This isn't something that will go away. I think we're seeing the adoption of technology in every single sector, whether you're in fishing, mining, engineering, space travel. Technology is going to play a critical element in whatever sector and journey you're in. And for us, from a financial technology perspective, we view FinTech as a convergence technology. Because at the end of the day, money has to move from A to B. And how do we move it to do it securely, cheaply, and everything else on top of it? So it's going to be secure, faster, quicker, cheaper. So it becomes a win-win for all the stakeholders involved. So for our candidates, thank you much for being with us today. I think it's the first step. We will be having the ministry back for a number of times. I know we're already working with the MRIC on a number of things. So gentlemen, once again, thank you from my side for your time this afternoon. And we'll hopefully wrap up some of the other questions, get it to all the participants. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, have a good evening to some of our viewers, good afternoon and a good morning. And we look forward to seeing you at webinar soon. Thanks so much for your running. Thanks for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.